Siam nostalgia siam. So eat so Tsi'li'xw and Su'hun'up the Northwest Indian College. Eat the Tsi'li'xw Tunnels. Eat the Lummi Tunnels the Tiakai siam. Eat August the Tsi'li'xw. Eat Quennaquans and Tsi'li'xw Hussmeen. Eat Quennaquans it's a school. La Achans it's a Awanach As and Awanach Alangit. Eat Quennaquans in the Northwest Indian College. Awa eat August Alangit at Ishtalma. I just want to say a few words to welcome you here. And in the spirit of our ancestors that are with us, we say Nukchis and Nukwalia. We thank them for being here. We thank each and every one of you for being here. We raise our hands to you. We thank the Northwest Indian College for pursuing our Chilangan, our way of life. At one time, through this Lummi day school, as well as some of the boarding schools in the past, it was outlaw for us to even use our language and our practice our way of life. And that now the college is steering us in a little different direction, standing us up in a good way to be able to face us as a people in the direction that we were created for on this territory. So again, just thanking each and every one of you for being here today. Lahoman, Haishka, Unflashin, Qualqualatiakayas, Tsi'li'xw and Su'hun'up Hussmeen, Haishka, Tsi'li'xw, Nostalgia siam. And again, thanking each and every one of you for being here. We want to encourage our tribal members to not be kika, not to be walking around with their heads down in a good way. And that comes from within. So, and we had our own educational system before contact time, and some of those things that you'll be hearing today is a little bit about that. And as our relative says, it's mamiman, just a little bit, siam. So haishka siam, honest society siam. Haishka.
Can test this mic. Can everyone hear me back there? Okay. Siam, nostalgia siam. Tsi'li'xw and Su'hun'up Hussmeen, Tsi'li'xw siam, nostalgia siam. Quaachansasanatsa haishka Tsi'li'xw and Su'hun'up Quennasanatachal, Tsi'li'xw, Huyan Satlatsa Stalangan at a Wellmochtiskano Hees. August at a snap Huyan Listen at a Nasalaloch Latiskano Hees. Achansasansa Shuyam at a Tlactamish, it's a Qualthalmachton at Tsi'li'xw. Achansasan at a snap Chatsana Salaloch Latsa Mahoy, it's a Lapat, it's a Stai at a Wellmochtiskano Hees. Huyan listen at a Ngansa Salaloch La Chaskano Hees. Just a few words to hear our language spoken, because it's important that our young people need to hear it, to need to hear the language in order to inspire them to remember who we are as a people. And don't forget who we are as a people. I first of all wanted to thank each and every one of you for coming here today. and to listen to the words that are going to be spoken today. We're going to share with you some different things relating to the Salish Sea. To begin with, as a language instructor for many, many years, the term Salish is a linguistic term. It's a linguistic category. Just so you know, that's what it is. It's a linguistic group of people speaking a language. It's not a people. It's a linguistic term. And like you have the Strait Salish, the Interior Salish, you have the Coast Salish. They are groups of people. They're not individual tribes as such. It's by the categories of languages that they were spoken years ago. But but as I begin, I guess I'll start with Wianlison, it's a squall, it's an oxala, Tsi'li'xw. As I listened to my elder, Su'hun'up was my teacher. The late Al Charles was my teacher, my granduncle. And my first teacher was my grandfather, though. And I was privileged to hear them talk in the languages years ago. I was privileged to hear them speak all the time in the language. And they told their stories of who we are and where we come from and why we are the way we are today. As I listened to them talk about some of the creation stories of years ago, the creation of the animals, the birds, the trees, the mountains, the fish, the people, how everything was created. Many, many stories that I learned from them. As I listened to them talk about the stories of the star people and the stories of the people that live under the water, the stories of the people that live under the ice. There are many, many stories that our people handed down that I heard years ago. And you don't have to worry, I recorded all of them by now, most of them anyway. They've all been recorded by now that I learned. But I'm going to share with you a couple of stories today of our belief system of Cows and Tsi'li'xw. Tsi'li'xw was a high creator, and Cows was the one that walked on the earth helping the Tsi'li'xw. And they already had the people created at that time. And Cows was coming along, and he was changing the people into animals and birds and things here on the earth today. And I tell a few little stories about how there was I guess I'll start with two ladies. They were on guard duty at the village, and one at each end of the village, and they had a whistle. They had a whistle around their neck, and they had orders to blow the whistle if they saw that strange man coming into the village. And they didn't know that Cows was the changer. He was called the changer. And he could change himself into anybody. He could change himself into anything he wanted to be. He changed himself into their friend that they knew already. They went over and they asked the ladies, Tsi'li'xw, watch, what are you doing? Oh, we're on guard duty. We're just making our baskets, and we're just sitting here watching for this guy to come along. And first thing the Cows does, he takes her whistle, puts it in their mouth. he starts to change her. He sings his song and he starts to change her. Puts a whistle in her mouth, and both the ladies, he changes them into Tsi'li'xw. Tsi'li'xw is a loon. And wherever you go on the water, loon is going to tell on you. Because always when you get on the water, you're going to hear the loon talking out there. Always going to make noise, telling the people that he's around. Another story about cows is that these men, they didn't want to be changed into anything else. So this guy was busy making a spear. He was making a long spear. He was making the head of the spear out of agate. He was chipping away at it. And along comes the cows. He changed himself into his friend. Asked him, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm going to get that cows before he gets me." Changes me into any old animal or bird, he says. So the cows grabs a hold of him and he starts to change him. In our way, we sprinkle him with tummus and he starts to sing and he starts working on him like that. He takes that long spear, puts it in his mouth, and he pushes it down, pushes it down. He stretches him out, makes him long and skinny, long and skinny. He changed him into Tsi'li'xw. The Tsi'li'xw is a crane. That's why the crane's got long legs and long neck. Our old people had stories for everything and how everything was made. And but a long time ago, I heard the story of the Tsi'li'xw. Tsi'li'xw is the blackfish or the killer whale. This relates to today what we're doing with Tokatai and the blackfish that's in Miami, Florida. A long time ago, there was a young man who lived on San Juan Island out that way. He was about 13, 14 years old. He was an orphan. He didn't have no mom and dad. He was being raised by his granny, his grandma. There were just the two of them. And he had nobody to play with, nobody to talk to, so he went out. And let's wait for the phone call to be answered. Somebody left their phone on. But as he was out there sitting on the bluff one day, he saw Tsi'li'xw coming. Tsi'li'xw go shoo, shoo, like that. So he went home that evening and he told his granny, he says, "Granny," he says, "I saw Tsi'li'xw today." "Yeah, sonny, yeah." Next day he went. Here they come again. Jump, they go, jump. Day by day went by, he saw Tsi'li'xw. He became real curious as to the Tsi'li'xw, so he jumped in his little canoe and away he went. Went right out there to be amongst them when they come. He was sitting out there waiting for them to come, and sure enough, here they come. They go like that. He followed them for a little while, and pretty soon they jumped real high and they went down. They jumped real high and they went down. all of them jumped and they went down. And pretty soon they were all down under the water. They never came up. He went around and around and around on his canoe, waiting for them to come up. They never came back up. So he went home and he told his granny again. Granny, he says, I saw Tsi'li'xw. And they all went down and they never came back up. Yeah, Sonny, yeah, I know. She already knew about it. So again he went. He says, this time I'm going to watch them real careful. Sure enough, they went down. Again, they never came back up. Finally, he came to the decision that I'm going to be right on their tail next time they get here. I'm going to be right on their tail. I'm going to go and I'm going to watch and see where they go. So the last one, she jumped really high and she went down. He was right there when she went down. She got sucked under the water. He got sucked under the water by her vacuum. And he went way down right behind her in the canoe. And he was way down under the water. Pretty soon he looked up. He could see the bright light. So he must have thought, that's why I have to go to get out of the water here. I have to swim toward that light to get out. So he swam toward that light. And he got up to the light and he came to the surface. He took a deep breath and he looked around. And he saw Tsi'li'xw. They were all coming out of the water. They were coming onto the beach and they took their gear off. They took their gear off and they were people. These are the people that live under the water. So this young man, he got caught. One of the young Tsi'li'xw said, what are you doing down here? You don't belong down here. You get back in your canoe. I'm going to go tell my grandpa that you're here. So she went running to get her grandpa, and here comes her grandpa. What are you doing down here? You don't belong down here. Get in your canoe and go. And so pretty soon, the young man thought to himself, he says, you know, if I get in my canoe and go, the current is so swift, I'll end up at Tsi'li'xw. I'll end up way up at Point Roberts. I'll end up way up there, so. He asked the old grandfather, he says, can I stay here at least till the tide turns, so I can go home this way on the tide instead of ending up way up there? Well, the grandfather thought about it for a while. He said, well, I guess so. So he assigned his granddaughter to watch the young man. Don't you let him, you watch him now. Don't let him get too far from here. You watch him. So they went about their business for a while, and pretty soon a little spark took place. The young man and the young lady kind of made eyes at each other. They made eyes at each other because they were both about the same age. And the grandfather, he saw this, you know. And again, the young man asked if he could stay down there with him. And the grandfather says, well, just think about it, he says. Your granny's sitting up there. She's sitting on the beach and she's crying and crying and crying and crying because she lost you to the water. she lost you to the water. So just think of her, she lost you. So he put his head down. The grandfather says, if you get Granny's permission to come back, you can come and stay with us. So he went back up, told his Granny what he saw. She says, yes, honey, I know. And he says, Granny, I found a girlfriend down there. I want to go down there and stay with him down there. And Granny says, sure, sonny, you go ahead and go. You go ahead and go, because I'm old now. She says, I'm old now. You go ahead, you have your life, you live your life now, I'm old. And so he felt glad that he could go, but he felt bad because he was going to leave Granny behind. So he told Granny, he says, well, Granny, you go down to the beach every day and I'll put a fish on the rock for you. You go down to the beach every day and I'll pile your wood right there for you on the beach there, Granny. I'll take care of you, Granny. So Granny said that was a good idea, so they did that. So away he went, back down under the water. Pretty soon Granny's sitting there on the bluff looking out. Coast Salish was going by. Right at the end there was two little ones like this. Oh, must be my Ingus, must be my Ingus, my grandchild in the back there. So she was happy to see him happy. So he took care of her, and pretty soon they come back again. There's one little itty-bitty one, little tiny one. Oh, must be my Chalmuk, my great-grandson. So that's who they are. But this story comes down through oral history. Oral history is how this come to me. An old man come to my house and told me this story. So this is where, we have cameras and stuff recording everything, but the old people used to say, take it in your memory, carry it with you and share it. You don't have to write it down or anything, just share it with your children, because your children have to know. You don't have to put it in a book or anything like that, just share it. And that's the way we did. We did everything orally. We had oral history. A little bit about where we are and where we come from. We are the Tsi'li'xw people. We are the Tsi'li'xw people. Our people were, our main village site was on Orcas Island at Alalung. That was our main village site, and West Sound was our main village site. We had thousands upon thousands of people that lived in all of the islands, all throughout the islands. You have to know the history of our people. The coming of the smallpox, the coming of the flu, literally almost wiping our people out. The coming of the boarding schools, the government schools, trying to make us forget who we are and where we come from. These are the things we have to teach our young people today. You have to know who you are and where you come from in order to know where you're going in this world today. You have to know who you are and where you come from. That's most important. Because at Alalung, many, many years ago, Huian Licensisquel, it's just Huiam just his Huyan lasana tsana aksala chaskeno his achen such as huyam. It's a huyan lasatsa that's a man las chaskeno his. This story was told to me by my teacher. He was born in 1891. And it came from his father. Came from his father when he was young. So the story is of old. But the Tsi'li'xw story, one old man had a vision of a great flood that was coming. And so he told the people, you got to start getting ready. You got to start getting ready. He says, I saw this, it's coming. So he told them to build 2 huge tsi'li'xw, 2 big canoes. Build the cattail mats to go over the canoes. You start drying your food. You dry your clams, you dry your ducks, you dry your fish. You dry your berries, you get everything all ready to go. Put them in boxes and put them in the canoe, get them ready to go. The old man says, when it comes time for the flood, we're only going to put the children in these canoes. We're not going to put any old people. It's going to be just all the children are going to go in these 2 canoes. So that's what the waters came. Waters came up. They put just the little kids in the canoes. The canoes were tied together. They went up, they came down in the flood like that. As the canoes came back down, the canoes split apart. One landed on Orcas and one landed on San Juan as we know them today. These young people really didn't have too much experience in how to survive, how to gather their food. They had to rely on the older ones that carried the knowledge of how to gather and prepare food. So they started teaching each other how to prepare the food and gather. As time got a little further along, they got a little older. They started to pair off. Some went over here because they had Sahwa over there, they had butter clams over there. So they moved over there and they ate butter clams. Some people ate Tsi'li'xw all the time, so they moved over there where Tsi'li'xw, the octopus, was. The island today is called Tsi'li'xw, Flat Top Island is Tsi'li'xw. They moved over there, there's lots of berries over there. They moved, whatever each couple liked, they start moving apart. Finally, one day, the elder, he says, we are Tsi'li'xw people, and we're moving further and further apart. We're moving further and further apart from our land. Our couples are pairing off further and further apart. We better have a meeting, he says. So they sent out canoes, they sent out runners, called a big gathering of all the people that survived the flood. We have to come up with a decision of who we are and where we come from. They had a big discussion. They came up with the idea, wherever you go, you're going to put your mish on the end of your name. This is why we have Dawamish, Suquamish, Kaikomish, Snohomish, Samish. All the Mish people are all the children of the ones that survived the Great Flood. But still, Orcas is right here. This is our land, Orcas. San Juan, this is still our home here yet. We are still the Tsi'li'xw people here. We didn't have to change our name. Through the course of time, treaty time, when everybody was moved to the mainland, the first people that didn't know how to speak our language asked, "Who are you? Where are you from?" "We are Lummi." Lummi was who. We were the people from the mainland here, Lummi. So he couldn't write that down, so he just put down Lummi. So that's how we got that name here, just Lummi. But Lummi is the people from here, Lummi. So, but still, our ancestors are right there on Orcas and San Juan. And all of our people are still buried there. Anywhere you go out in the San Juans, our ancestors are buried all over there. Olsen, Tsi'li'xw. One of my teachers was telling me that the smallpox was so bad, people were just laying dead in their canoes. They were laying dead all over the beaches. They were dead in the longhouses. They were just laying dead all over the place. A long time ago, the smallpox almost wiped our people out. Just a few stories to get you an idea of who we are and where we come from as Lummi, as Salish, as Tsi'li'xw, as whatever you want to call us, as Wamok, as Indian people, First Nations people. But like I say, we have stories of, like the salmon woman. I know how much time I have, but
much time
whatever.
as it takes.
Okay. We listen to Sali'xw the story of the salmon woman is that at one time our people lived at the village at the river, the Tsi'li'xw at the river. And all of a sudden one day there was no more salmon. Our salmon quit coming. Our people started getting sick and our people started dying. The leaders had to make a decision to what they're going to do to find food for the people. So they sent out this man by canoe. He went down the mouth of the river. He went all the way out toward Lummi Island, went out Hales Pass, and he went out that way, north of Orcas there. And pretty soon the fog came in. The fog got real thick. And a long time ago, our people were really smart. How do you travel in the fog without instruments, They had bundles of little sticks like this, about this long. Bundle of little sticks. Because sometimes you'll go round and around in a circle. If you're not careful in the fog, you go around in a circle. So they used to take a stick and they put it behind them. They'd see which way it would go. If it would go straight, they were going straight. But if it went this way, they got to go the other way. They had little navigation for the fog. He was way out there in the fog. Pretty soon he could hear somebody crying. This lady was crying and crying and crying. And so he paddled to where he thought he heard her crying. And finally he found her. And Tsi'li'xw, what are you doing? Are you feeling bad, looking for food for your people too? He asked her. No, she says, no, I just have no place to go, she says. And he told her, he says, my village is starving, I don't have no food for my people. And so she told him, she says, well, take off your hat. He had a big cedar hat. Take off your hat and dip it into the water. He took his hat off and dipped it in the water, and the salmon come in. He filled up his canoe with salmon. He said, you see that? He says, those are my children, she says. Those are my children. So he invited her back to come back to the village, to where he lived. And so they became happy when they were coming back in. They start singing. They start singing as they come back in, and all the people of the village went running down to the edge of the water because they didn't recognize that song that they were singing when they were coming. That was her song that they were singing when they were coming in, and they didn't recognize it. He introduced her to the people as the salmon woman, and that the salmon are her children, and she's giving her children to our people of the village. So everybody was happy for a while. So she told her children, she says, your children, you go up the river and you make your beds up there. You make your beds up the river. So away they went. All the salmon went up the river to make their beds up the river. And so in our river, salmon is almost all year round because there are different species come at different times of the year. And so they're constantly going up the river at some time or other, a different species of salmon. So people were happy for a while. One day, kids were playing, or somebody was playing, or somebody was talking. We don't know who it was. She overheard somebody say, is that all we ever eat around here is fish? Baked fish, smoked fish, fried fish, boiled fish, 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 fish. That's all we ever eat around here is fish. I'm just tired of fish. Okay, well, salmon woman got offended because they thought they didn't like her children anymore. So she up and she left again. She gathered up all her children, away they went. No more food for our people. Again, our people start dying again. So they sent the same man out there to go find her. Sure enough, in the fog again, there she was out there crying and crying. He met up with her and he talked with her. He apologized for whatever happened. And he told her, he says, that'll never happen again. So that's why today well, first of all, he promised her that we're going to show our appreciation to you all the time. We're going to show our appreciation to you all the time. So this is where our first salmon ceremony began. We honor the first salmon that comes to our people every year. We give thanks to the salmon woman for providing food for our people. This is how important the water is to us. The water is life in everything that we do. I mean, if you think about the stories that I tell you and how they're relating to what we're supposed to be talking about, it all relates to the water, it all relates to the sea. So anyway, every year now we have the first salmon ceremony. We give honor, we give thanks, we give praise to that first salmon that comes to our people. See? So, but there's many, many stories to tell of long ago. Many, many, many stories of why we do what we do. It's just like the importance of the basketry. This is called llapat. It's a clam basket. The woods relate to the water because you gather this in the woods to relate to the water to gather the clams. Okay? The baskets are made for the dried food, for the dried salmon, the dried clams, the dried berries, everything. We're all tied together. We're all tied together with what we do. Basketry is not just basketry. Basketry relates to all of this. It's part of our way of life, our Tsi'li'xw of our people, our way of life. But I usually go by this. This is what I carry this in case I lose my memory someday. These are my stories here. On here are all my stories that I know. So I don't forget, because sometimes I'll run out of a story, I'll have to look at it and see, oh yeah, I forgot to tell about that story, you know. And then, but one day Charles was walking on the earth. He decided that he was going to do a naming ceremony. So he was going to name all the fishes of the water. So the little fish got all excited in the water. They were just all excited, jumping up and down. They were all excited. Today's the day we get our name. We get named today. So the little fishes were all just excited. What time are we going to do this? Oh, we're ready to go. So little fishes come out of the water like that. Come piling up on the beach like this. This is why today we have the owie and the cackle. This is why the flounders and the skates and the halibut and them are all flat, because they were on the bottom of the pile. Because that's how they got squished by all the other fishes. But that's, you know, little things that we tell our children how important things are. You know, that, but we're relating to them how important it is to know who you are by carrying a name. That's part of why we tell that story. But one day there was a bunch of little clams on the beach one day. Little clams were all out there and the tide was way out. And pretty soon you could hear little clams go, "Psst, did you hear about so-and-so? Did you hear about so-and-so? Did you know that so-and-so? Did you so-and-so? Did you hear about this? Did you hear about that?" They were gossiping. Little gossiping clams like that. So along comes the howls. Went like that. Changed them all. When the tide came in and went out, all I could see was little clams go, "Psst, psst." That's why they squirt, they go, psst. And that's why they gossip like that. So, our people had a reason for everything. Everything had a reason. Everything had a purpose. But we trust in the Spirit. We trust in the Spirit to show us the way. When I first learned how to do this, I had no teacher show me how to do this. I just sat down with some limbs and I tried it. I tried it. And I tried it. Had a pile just about that high. You know, I just tried it. Eventually the Spirit will show you how to do things. You just have to trust in the Spirit. You know, if you want to know, they'll show you the way. The Spirit will show you the way. But when it comes to the Tsi'li'xw are the wool blankets. You know, many years ago, it used to get really cold around here. We have global warming nowadays, and it doesn't get cold anymore. You know, my auntie can tell you that it used to really get cold a long time ago. It used to really get cold. And you could see your breath all the time. And but the Tsi'li'xw was made for warmth. And they made the Tsi'li'xw, the blankets, out of mountain goat's wool. They made it out of our people raised a little dog for his wool. His name was Kaka. And they would take the fur off that little dog and they would mix it with a mountain goat's wool to make the Tsi'li'xw. They would mix in the fireweed fluff and the cattail fluff, the mountain goat's wool, and even cedar would be woven right into the blankets. Even duck down was woven right into the blankets. And but they were designed for warmth. But I'm glad to see the Salish weaving is coming back now, more so and more so. Yeah, we were almost to the point of loss with our Salish weavers. But there's a lot to know about our people, a lot to know about how and why we carry on the way we do. And as we give thanks to the Creator for all the food that's being provided for us, that's a daily thing. We have to give thanks to the Creator. We give thanks to the food that gave up its life for us, because that's important. The food will give up its life for us to nourish our bodies. We always have to do that. And because I know a long time ago, not so many years ago, but a few years ago, I used to watch one hunter in particular would go out in the woods with his deer whistle, and he would make the sound of a baby deer in the snow time and the winter time. And the deer would come all the way around us like that. I just sat there in just amazement watching the deer come from every which direction. And the one would come and it would stand there and it would give its life for the people. Our hunters know that the deer know which one's going to give up their lives for our people. We know that. As hunters, some of them know the deer will give up their lives for their people, to nourish the people. That's why we give thanks for the animals and the birds that give up their lives for our people. We can't forget that. I always tell young people, what are you guys going to do when there's no more grocery stores to go shopping. What are you guys going to eat? You guys have to know what to eat. You have to know how to prepare it. You have to know these things in order for us to survive. This is what we teach our young people, how to gather and prepare the foods all around us. Anywhere from the little sprouts of the salmon berries to the little grunters that live under the rocks. Things that our people still gather today. You know, the salmon berries, the soap berries, all of these things that we still gather today. We do our best to teach the young people because it's not only food, a lot of times it's medicine. The stuff that's in the food that we eat is medicine. We have to take care of ourselves. So, I think I can get carried away. I think I better quit. I think I'll quit. This way, Haishka.
Hey, Siam. Haishkas, Salish. Asiam, Tsi'li'xw and Su'hun'up Hussmeen. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. And my hands go up to the college for inviting us to be a part of this today. I'm humbled at this moment, being in the presence of our hereditary chief and his knowledge. But it's an honor and a privilege to be here. I just want to say Haishka. I want to share a couple of stories not long time ago. When I was young, we went and moved down to the village, which was down right over the Marine Drive Bridge, and off going towards town would be off to your right. And I was really small, but there was a lot of people that lived there in that Tsi'li'xw village. And at that time, I really didn't know my culture. We were part of a relocation project where we relocated, and then when we came back, we relocated back home to the village. And so I grew up on the river. And Salish and his family was there. And a lot of other people. So I grew up on the river. That was my way of life. That was who I became, a Tsi'li'xw person. And then there was a lot of fights and a lot of arguments about treaty rights. We had treaties with the government. And then in 1974, it was reaffirmed. So my Shillangin became the Salish Sea, my way of life. I spent a lot of years out in the Salish Sea and out in the San Juan Islands. And a lot of knowledge out there. A lot of good stories, a lot of camping, a lot of hunting, fishing. And but it wasn't until like 4 or 5 years ago a rock, Spirit of the Shwala, our indigenous technology that really had an impact in my story, my events that are unfolding. The cultural orientation of waking up. I didn't carry a traditional name until 3 years ago. Chief Salish, my mate Shirley, others in the community helped stand me up, and I took on the name Su'hun'up Hussmeen. Out in the San Juan Islands at a place called Tsi'li'xw. And so that gets me to a more of a culturally oriented place, space. The identity of, or the knowledge of knowing who you are and where you come from. So these weavings here were done on a Salish loom. I'll share some stories about, a little bit about my young weaving. But I built the Salish loom because I wanted to know about male-female balance. And I really hadn't any idea that it would go into other things, but it has. I did this weaving for Shirley Kusamat, and I was my first Salish weaving, but I just wanted to have an idea what it felt like, see what women, the balance, male-female balance, what they felt, what their purpose, their job, their role. Because all I ever did was fish and hunt. But there was other things, spinning of willow. This is some willow bark I got, but I haven't learned how to spin it yet. But it was part of our reef net technology that's very sacred to the Lummi people. And so our chairman, Tim Blue Jr., asked if we would set out our reef nets, our traditional reef nets at Tsi'li'xw, in honor of our ancestral villages and our treaty reserved rights. So that was another story that we took with our setting of our traditional knowledge. But then it just starts going on and on and on. This is a weaving that I'm doing current. You know, where's Natalie Beloy? I just want to say thank you for arranging the Museum of Anthropology visit. And we recently had some Salish blankets that were in Vancouver that were collected in the 1800s. Would have had similar patterns, similar colors, not so much on this style. This is a Chilkat style, northern style. This is a Salish style loom. Anyway, they were collected a couple hundred years ago, and they're a really prized collection of Salish art, Salish weaving. And I really hold it dear to my heart because it was the females that did these, and it just is a lot to know, you know, that we have this balance and in Coast Salish lifestyle, and I just want to learn a little bit about it. So I think for the last couple months I've been doing this one, and but with Chief Tsi'li'xw, we're kind of transitioning into roots right now, cedar roots, and the earth is waking up and the earth is alive, and so we transition a little bit from this to getting out and harvesting other materials. This was ocean spray that we went and collected just about a week ago. I didn't know if it was going to be the right season, but we went and got them anyway. And I'm thinking that it's a good salmon stick. And then slapat is something that I'm just learning with Chief Tsi'li'xw, our cedar branches and our roots. So we just built this yesterday, our lapat. It's really a nice piece of heavy-duty work. But it's just, I feel like I'm a student, and I'll probably always be a student in the oral world, trying to learn a sense of identity, the knowledge that our ancestors carried with them. It's just a lifelong learning process to have an idea of the old ways, the materials, the bear grass, the sweet grass, the birch. It's quite an amazing experience to all of a sudden have an oral experience where you go through these learning events that are lasting. They have a lasting impression, and they're real worthy of honoring our inherent rights, our Tsi'li'xw, our way of life. And I'm thankful for the people that are in my life, the ones that help stand me up in a good way, guide me and show me good things. These are really, really, really good things to learn. They're a lot of knowledge, a lot of skill. And I'm thankful that my hands somewhat stay busy. It's just a lifelong something I'll probably just continue. I'm not a real speaker, but I can BS a good game. But as far as standing up and talking about culture, I am just really more or less being oriented on, thousands of years of knowledge. I'm just thankful and I'm grateful that I'm here in a good way to see each and every one of you. It's been it's quite an honor to stand up here with the Chief Hereditary Siam. It totally is unexpected. I didn't expect it, but I feel privileged that to be here. Thankful for each and every one of you. Haishka. Oh, okay. One more short story. We were doing the work that the chairman asked us to do, was to set our reef nets, and at that time, I guess, for whatever reason, the chief, he found it in his heart to give me this cedar hat. But it's a hat, it's a style that our ancestors wore in relation to the reef net. And I feel privileged to do that work. And then the chief found it in his heart to give me a vest. So I really carry these dear to my heart because they're from our hereditary Siam. So, Haishka.